Hello, everybody. My name is Marsh, and this is my experience with the Wheel of Time Slog. So, to start out, if you can leave a like and subscribe, that would be greatly appreciated. But let's go ahead and jump into my thoughts overall on the Wheel of Time Slog and how it was. So, what is the proverbial slog? The slog is what people notate as a section of books in the Wheel of Time series. Typically, it's book 8, 9, and 10. Some people include 7, but the majority of people, it's 8, 9, and 10. And these are books where the quality is much, much worse than the previous books and the following books. Oftentimes, a lot of people who try to read Wheel of Time will give up during the slog and will not continue. Personally, this is my first time reading through the entire series. I just finished book 10, Crossroads of Twilight, and now I am officially out of the slog. So what did I think about the so-called slog? Well, first and foremost, I think it definitely lived by its name of the slog. It was a slog. And the reason being, there's a few things that Robert Jordan did that I did not really enjoy. To be honest, a lot of it comes down to cutting the fat. I feel like these books could have just been combined into one for the most part. And you could tell when I'm looking at the audiobook length or the page length of these books compared to the others. These 3 books together are about the size of some of the largest books in the Wheel of Time total. So, for example, like The Shadow Rising is like 2 of these books combined at least. I have a chart, which I'll throw up here from Reddit, of all the audiobook lengths. So as you see with that chart, the Lords of Chaos and Shadow Rising are about 40 to 45 hours in that range. And the 3 books in the slog, 8, 9, and 10, are about 20 to 25-ish hours each, according to the chart. I'm not looking at it currently, so I might be slightly off. But 2 of those is basically one of the largest Wheel of Times books. So you honestly could have combined, I would say, at least Winter's Heart and Crossroads of Twilight, because those 2 really should have been combined with the way that the sequences played out. They should have been combined and should have cut out a lot of fat with it. Now, for any of you that may have not seen anything on the Wheel of Time or haven't started reading it and don't want any spoilers, I would just say the slog does live up to its name. There's a few tips I would have for getting through it, which helped me personally, and I'll talk about them. And then after I talk about that, I'll go into some more spoiler discussion in regards to my dislikes and things I did like when it comes to the slog. So, tips for getting through the slog. My first tip: don't be afraid to use an audiobook. That's personally how I got through this. I have to commute a lot for work, and so I made the commitment I'm going to listen to the slog no matter what. When I commute is when I will listen to the slog, instead of having it take down on my reading time and take away from other things that I'm reading. That's probably the biggest thing that helped me get through it. I was able to push through it, not as quickly as possible, but quicker than I would have if I was reading the physical book. Another thing I would say, if you don't recognize a name, if he's talking about some random Shido or random Aes Sedai you don't care about, continue to read, skim if you want, just continue. Don't worry about recalling everything right away. I'm not one of the people who necessarily reads series, but I do like watching podcasts and people talk about books and spoiler chats and go into discussion on things. So I usually get a lot of my recap through that rather than rereading an entire series, and I'll get a lot of the enjoyment through people talking about it through podcasts. So I don't think it's necessary to reread this. Skip the parts you don't like. Skim it if you don't know what they're talking about, if you really want to skim. Otherwise, just continue to read, truck through it. Don't worry about remembering everyone's name and everything that's happening. Robert Jordan does so much recap, it's really annoying. But you also have to remember that at the time, these books were written many years in between each other, and so they needed that recap for people who aren't reading the series nonstop, that are picking up the book after a few years. When you're reading them all at once, it gets a little tiring. The last thing I would say for getting through the slog, I can't personally vouch for this, but a lot of people say that it does get better. Things will get better. You will enjoy the series further. I personally haven't finished the series. I just finished the slog, so I can't tell you about that, and I don't know if it's true, but I'll make a video on it if it is true. Other than that, I'm going to go into more spoiler discussion on a lot of things, and so if you haven't read the slog or any Wheel of Time books, if you're thinking about picking up the series, feel free to drop off this video. I would just say, so far, I do enjoy the series. I don't know if it's worth it yet. I haven't finished it, but I will definitely update you and let you know. But feel free to drop off this video if you want to avoid any spoilers. Okay? I think that was long enough. Now, spoilers. Not really spoilers, just more me discussing what I read, what I liked, what I didn't like. So, let's start off with a few positives, and then we'll go into a lot of the negatives. Even though I didn't enjoy the slog, there were some substantial things in the series that happened. One of those things was Rand cleansing Sidene. The second, for me at least, was the establishment of Matt's character and growing to like him more. There are a few other substantial story beats that happen, such as the Bowl of the Winds, Elaine getting pregnant, all three, Elaine, Aviendha, and Min marrying Rand, Egwene becoming the Amerlin, and then heading to Tar Valon, and then as we know how Crossroads Twilight ends, she gets ambushed and kidnapped, I guess, or betrayed by the White Tower. So there are some substantial things that actually occurred during the slog. I think a majority of the issue falls with how the writing was paced and focusing on a lot of characters we don't like, and at least with Crossroads the Twilight, reliving things that should have happened concurrently with Winter's Heart. So starting with Path of Daggers, at least, I'll be honest, all these books kind of mesh together, and it's kind of hard to remember them just because I didn't enjoy them that much compared to everything else, at least. So Path of Daggers, I guess the main thing was Rand getting betrayed by the Ashaman, and this was all very, random at the time. Not random in it happening. You kind of saw or knew something like that was going to happen with the betrayal, but that was the first thing that happened. The majority of the book, a lot of it, it's just very inconsequential. Too much focusing on other Aes Sedai and Seanchan that I don't like, and that goes for the other books as well. At least for Winter's Heart and Crossroads of Twilight, they should have combined both of those books. As you know, they happen at the same time essentially. And the end of Winter's Heart is Rand cleansing Sidene, and that sort of lines up with Crossroads of Twilight, which ended basically with Egwene getting kidnapped. But the whole time they're talking about what happened in Shadar Logoth and what's going on with everything, and they're acting like they don't know what happened, which I guess they don't because it's happening at the same time, and they don't know that it occurred yet. But they should have, honestly, Robert Jordan should have combined the two books and had them happen side by side. It would have been a way better climax to have the cleansing of Sidene at the end of that as one big book. I mean, it's not like we're unfamiliar with reading big books. It's the Wheel of Time. They're going to get through it. But I guess he wanted to do it that way. Maybe he was just trying to be experimental. I don't know. There was one good scene in Crossroads of Twilight that I liked, and that was with Perrin. I felt like they gave him some good character development. Along with that, they also made me enjoy Matt more. Matt isn't one of my favorite characters so far in The Wheel of Time, especially in the beginning. He's hindered by the dagger, and so he doesn't have much of a personality. He's just Dagger Boy. And basically, I never got the big deal about him. Everyone was raving about him. Oh, he's my favorite. You're going to love Matt, stuff like that. And I never really picked up on it or enjoyed him much until these books. And I don't know if part of that is because the rest of it is so uninteresting, I guess, that you cling on to Matt's chapters. Maybe that's where the affinity grew, and then people just clinged on to Matt from that point because he was the only bright spot in the slug kind of thing, or in the slog. I don't know. Maybe that's it. There also was a few other good scenes as well. One I enjoyed was the sister bonding thing with the Aiel and Aviendha and Elaine. I enjoyed that. It felt like a conclusion, sort of, because they kind of finally married in a way to each other and accepted each other. And they were already near sisters, but this way it was finalized and together. Along with that, also the bonding of Rand to the three girls and continuing the prophecy that Min originally had for them, with him marrying all three of them and them kind of accepting it. Yeah, it's weird, but prophecy, I guess. That's the way they're doing it. So it's good to see that kind of conclude and where they're going to go with that. Also, the twins that Elaine's going to have, what's going to happen with them, because you never really hear about Rand having kids at all when it comes to the Wheel of Time, at least in the outside perspective. So it's pretty interesting. I didn't get spoiled on that. Please don't spoil me on anything, though. Another thing I wanted to complain about with the Slog was the prologues. I don't know what is up with Robert Jordan writing like prologues that are hundreds of pages long. It literally, like, 20% of the book is just a prologue. I personally like hate it as someone who's a chapter driven reader, and I like to read a chapter a day or a chapter, 2 chapters a night, something like that. When I get a prologue that's the size of like 4 or 5 chapters, that kills my progress. I don't like stopping in the middle of a prologue. I don't like stopping in the middle of a chapter. I like finishing a chapter and then closing a book. Having to stop really annoyed me. That's just a personal nitpick. Overall, though, is the Slog as bad as they say? Kinda. I don't know. It wasn't enough to get me off the series, and part of that is because I really want to see how it ends, and I'm also a very determined person. When I start something, I do not like DNFing, so I try to avoid that. And so it wasn't enough to get me to avoid it. I don't think it's bad writing. I don't think they're bad books per se. I think they need to be edited, cut down, combined in some cases, and change, but I don't think it's horrible. I think it suffers a lot from just focusing on too many people that we just don't care about, and not focusing on the Emmons Field crew, basically. Whenever I get a Shido thing, I just roll my eyes. It just goes over my head. Or a random Aes Sedai I don't know about. I don't care about Elida's point of view. Every once in a while, it's fine. I don't need her point of view every prologue. I don't need a chapter with Elida, checking in with her. It's like, she's the big bad. I don't actually like getting perspectives from bad guys necessarily. Prologues, I feel like it's fine. Like when we were in Mount Doom, I guess they called it. I forgot. And we got to sort of see our first look at the big bad in the mountain. That was interesting. That kind of stuff's fine. But like prologues where it's like their perspective on a battle, or like, oh, they're angry, blah, 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 blah. Like, I don't care. But it's not the worst thing ever, the Slog. You can get through it. For me, audiobooks was my vice. And for you, maybe something else, and maybe skipping pages, skipping chapters. But now that I'm through it, I'm excited to continue on. I want to see where it leads me. Please, please, please do not spoil me on anything. I do not want to hear about anything going forward. I'm going to make a predictions video of what I think will happen. I have no clue what will happen. Do not correct me. It might even be a bad idea to make a prediction video. I don't know if I should because of that very reason. But I will make one. Overall, though, I enjoyed it. I'm going to continue. I might do individual book reviews for each book I finish from this point, now that I'm no longer in the Slog. If you would like that, let me know. In the end, though, what did you think about the Slog when you read it, if you have read it? Any thoughts? Anything that you enjoyed, didn't enjoy in particular? Other than that, though, if you could leave a like and subscribe, that would be greatly appreciated. I really appreciate your time, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye-bye.